Welcome to the special meeting of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, April 10th, 2023. The meeting notice was posted according to the requirements of the Open Meeting Act. This meeting will come to order. Call the roll, please.
First Congressional District Commissioner Seth Phillips. Second Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Third Congressional District Commissioner Charles Ortega.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Chairwoman Lindy Ritz.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam. At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. The next order of business is approval of the minutes. The draft of the minutes was in your packet, March 8th, 2023. Been sent to you. Any additions, corrections? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Potter.
Abstain.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
The next order of business is Sandra Shelton, an art contest.
Good morning, Commissioners. The 2023 Aviation Art Contest received over 400 pieces of art from 35 participating school districts. And the theme this year was air sports and the environment. Our celebrity judges were Commander Steve Duran from the TACAMO unit at Tinker Air Force Base, Maurice Compton with Ready 3, Allison Carson with the Oklahoma Defense Industry Association, and that is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Davis from the 137th Air Wing. In the junior division, ages 6 to 9, Anvika Menon from Washington Irving Elementary in Edmond took home first place. This year's second place winner in the junior division was Jessie Zhu from Truman Elementary in Norman. The third place winner was Ryan Smith from Stafford Elementary in Weatherford. An honorable mention went to Jake Park from Roosevelt Elementary in Norman. In the intermediate division, Chloe Childs from the Academy of Classical Christian Studies in Oklahoma City took top honors in the intermediate division, ages 10 to 13. Taking second place was Grace Wang from Truman Elementary in Norman, and third was Sam Viruth Srivatsava from Dove Schools of Discovery in Tulsa. And receiving an honorable mention in the division was Caden Day from Stafford Elementary in Weatherford. In the senior division, Norman North High School, Elizabeth Yu finished atop the senior division, ages 14 to 17, followed by Jaylee Edwards, a student at Chisholm High in Goldtree. Carlos Becerra from Dove Science Academy in Oklahoma City took third, while Brianna Macias received an honorable mention in the division. Macias is a student at Yukon Middle School. And we will hold our award ceremony on April 27th at 11 a.m. at Will Rogers World Airport in the observation area, and we invite the commissioners to attend, and I'm happy to yield for any questions.
These are great. I'm always impressed.
They did a really nice job. I love Top Gun there in the honorable mention category there.
Yeah.
They did a beautiful job this year. And you'll see that first place, Sustainable Aviation Fuels is what that truck says. I thought that was really clever, and our students are really thinking about the future of flight, and we appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is Director's Report.
Are you expecting me to drive too?
No.
No? Okay, all right, good. Pass that. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for gathering here on a Monday. I think this might be our first ever Monday commission meeting that we've ever had, so check that box off the bucket list. As you all know, we do have things that we have to do sometimes in the springtime, whether it's the legislative session or capital construction projects, just a little extra time to meet and discuss agency business. You will remember at our March meeting, because we had so much business to attend to on the airport construction side, I didn't want to belabor you with a director's report, but it is time to pay the piper, and we have to do for two opportunities for a director's report. So I'll try and go expediently as possible, but it has been a busy several months. Starting off, we have had a couple meetings with Putnam City Schools and Oklahoma City Airport staff about aerospace and aviation education. Putnam City is heavy into the AOPA and Choose Aerospace programs, and they have seen what Norman is doing with their Aviation High School Academy and have some desire to try and replicate that across the Putnam City School District. Of course, Wiley Post being in their backyard and having some empty space and available space, they're thinking about maybe trying to bring a classroom of some sort out to that facility, and what better place for students to learn than they're at an airport and experience what they can do with AOPA and Choose Aerospace. Followed that up after January 27th, and we just had a meeting last week to continue that discussion on April 7th. But following up the January 27th meeting, we had a discussion on February 2nd with Chancellor Garrett for State Regents for Higher Education, with ACES at the Department of Commerce, as well as our friends from Boeing. Todd Pauley, who I know some of you know, was the organizer of this meeting, really to discuss about how do we get the engineering talent that aviation aerospace needs across the state. That is one of our largest workforce needs that we have. Tinker Air Force Base can soak up every single engineer that comes out of a higher education institution in the state of Oklahoma and then some. And that doesn't even leave room for Boeing or our prime contractors or any of the companies up in Tulsa for any of their engineering talents. And so trying to figure out a way to solve that. I know this has been a long recurring theme for the last 20 years, but how can we solve the engineering need for aviation aerospace? Because that is one of the prime job positions that our companies need to be able to be successful in the state of Oklahoma. On February 7th, we had an Aero Caucus event up at the state capitol. Sandra Shelton, of course, amazed us again. I think we had 44 plus legislators there in attendance at that one, which was probably one of the best attended Aero Caucus meetings that we've ever had. That day's guest speaker was the OU Aerospace and Defense Executive MBA program. Of course, I and ACES spoke about some of the things that are going on in aviation aerospace across the state. And I think it just goes to show you some of the excitement surrounding this industry and how our legislators are trying to plug in. And we had several freshman lawmakers there, which is a big deal, trying to get those newbies and the newcomers to educate on what aviation aerospace means for their districts. FAA came to Oklahoma. As we know, the FAA did not visit us during COVID, and they had long since wanted to get out and see some airports. And so they're early in February. They came to Stillwater, Westheimer, and then, of course, the Oklahoma City airport system. Nick Young went to Stillwater and Norman Westheimer, and I attended the Oklahoma City meeting, really just to kind of get a hands-on deck, because while their manager and assistant manager and a few others have stayed the same, they've had about a 60 to 70% turnover in the airport's district office. And so wanted to get some of those new faces out to see the airports and just be able to put a face with a name where those airports are talking with on Zoom calls and via email and texts. Tulsa Regional Aerospace Chamber Council meeting. They're at East Central High School in Tulsa. East Central is doing the Choose Aerospace program and doing it quite well. Congressman Kevin Hearn was our guest speaker, and he shared some of his story with the students that were in attendance of how he became a pilot and how he became an aviator. And he's got a great story to tell of kind of how he's worked his way up in the business world from not having a whole lot of anything, and how aviation played a role, and how he still continues to love aviation and encourage each one of those students to be able to go into the aviation aerospace career field there in the Tulsa area. And then on the left, you see one of the students, one of their high-performing students, and what that individual is wanting to do is go work for American Airlines as a A&P mechanic. Next slide. It's thinking. Well, we can go ahead and keep talking while it's thinking. That same day, on February 10th, we were at the TASM, Tulsa Air and Space Museum, had a meeting with Senator Hayes, Senator Prieto, and several staffers from Congressman Hearn's office and Senator Langford's office to talk about how can we help TASM move forward. And so you see there, it was a good meeting. They have a new board chair who is CEO of one of the simulator companies that's up in the Tulsa area, and really trying to figure out a way. Okay, TASM was impacted negatively by the COVID pandemic. It was impacted by several things that have happened on the airport. And they have grand visions to expand and grow. And we know TASM's a very important thing for young students and to get people energized and excited about the career field. And so we're just trying to figure out ways to help TASM out and have them tap into some unknown kinds of funding that may have come about because of the pandemic, or some new grant programs that are out there that museums can tap into. And so pretty exciting to talk about that and get a strategic plan moving forward. As we know, Congressman Tom Cole is in a pretty important spot for us, being the chair of the THUD Subcommittee on Appropriations. That's, of course, where FAA gets all of its money from. And he has taken that role very seriously. I had a meeting with him on February 13th and some of his staff just to explain, here's how aviation aerospace works in the state. Obviously, he knows from his district down there in south central Oklahoma, but how does aviation aerospace work on a grander stage across the state of Oklahoma? And he took that pretty seriously and had a good meeting with him. Sandra and I attended the State Chamber Legislative Reception on February 15th. Of course, that was always a good opportunity to see and visit with our elected officials and just see what the temperature of the legislature is going to be for the session as we get to kick off. And granted, that was a couple months ago, and a lot of things have happened since then. But a lot of those conversations we had from that February 15th meeting paying dividends right now as our bills move through that process. And I know Sandra will talk about that here in a little bit. ODIA also had their legislative reception and policy reveal. I have the pleasure of being on their policy committee and talking about how we work as an agency in moving forward aviation aerospace legislation, and how ODIA and that association can help supercharge and energize those efforts on behalf of the greater defense industry for Oklahoma. South Central chapter, the last week of February, first week of March, we had two different conferences that I was able to attend. South Central chapter, AAAE, held its first conference since 2019. It was good to get together with our FAA friends down there in Fort Worth and visit with everybody and hit on some of the topics. And I had the pleasure of giving an update with some of our fellow state aviation officials from the region. There to the left of the screen, you see Texas, and on the far left, you'll see Arkansas. To the one right is New Mexico, and then two rights, Louisiana. So we're all well represented from all 5 states here in the region, and had a good opportunity. I did have to bug out, though, a little bit early to attend the NASEO's legislative conference in Washington, D.C., where I had the pleasure of visiting with 5 of our members of the congressional delegation and really talking about the topic that is taking up most of the oxygen right now in the room, and that is FAA reauthorization, as we go down the path of trying to figure out where are the House's and the Senate's policy points going to be, and can we get a bill accomplished before the end of the current FAA reauthorization expiring at the end of the current fiscal year. 2023 Aerospace Career Fair at Rose State was put on by the ACES program, and we were able to attend. That was an amazing career fair. I don't know what the attendance was, but I saw several pictures, and the room was full. I think it was over 300 people there in attendance, and of course that's very important, connecting people that want to get jobs in the industry with those opportunities, and making sure that some of those that may be not ready for a job yet are educated in the job opportunities that are going to be available for them long term. Followed that up on March 14th. So Congressman Cole sent his entire THUD committee staff. So as you all probably know, at the federal level, you have home staff or your district staff, and you have your office staff as a member. But then when you become chair of a committee, you also have staff at the committee level that helps work for you and helps move things through that particular committee's area of jurisdiction. So both the majority and minority members, staff members were represented, came to visit Oklahoma to see all things THUD, THUD being transportation, housing, urban development. Of course, we were most excited about the aviation and the FAA portfolio, had the opportunity to visit with them twice, once with Secretary Gatz as a part of the transportation cabinet, and then again they came by the OAC offices to see how is FAA work in Oklahoma, and of course, how do we make sure that this thing called the Monroney Center over here sees its mission expanded and grown for the long haul. On March 17th, had the opportunity to go up to the Ponca City Regional Airport, met with Don Newsom, their longtime airport manager. I think he is the longest tenured airport manager serving in the state of Oklahoma, so I had a great opportunity to visit with Don, his economic developer, David Myers, and then Garrett Bowers, the chair of their economic development committee, on, they have an old ConocoPhillips hangar that they are trying to find a tenant for, and so how can we go about helping them? How can they go about ensuring the growth of their airport? I know some of you had the pleasure of attending their runway grand opening about 1.5 years ago, and now that they have that brand new runway, they're going to try and make themselves a big player in maybe getting some of that Wichita area work that Wichita can't handle. How can they play a role in that in Ponca City? And of course, we talked about our ever favorite Mexican restaurant. We did hit that up while we were there, and promised all those in attendance that the new terminal building will still house a Mexican restaurant. May take a little while to get the grease back into the fryers and get some of that good cooking smell going, but I promise you the restaurant will stay around as far as I'm concerned. After Ponca City, I had the opportunity to go meet in Goldsby on March 20th. I think most of you have seen either in the news or on social media that their airport was hit by a tornado in late February, and several hangars were damaged. You'll see us trying to figure out a game plan for how can we help them along with some of their funding moving forward to replace some of those hangars. I also, as a little bit of a somber note, I don't know that any of you would remember Commissioner Joe Harris, who was a longtime serving commissioner from, I believe, the early 2000s to 2013, 2014. He passed away at the end of March, and March 20th was the last time I had the opportunity to see him. And he was a stalwart supporter for general aviation in Oklahoma, first at Blackwell-Tonkawa. He was the reason why Oklahoma goes to Oshkosh. He and a couple of his friends in the Blackwell-Tonkawa Airport Authority first went to Oshkosh back in, I think it was 05 or 06 on an economic development mission, recruited a light sport aircraft company to come back to Blackwell-Tonkawa and do some manufacturing. And so Joe Harris, most recently chairman of the Goldsby Airport, just really a great human being and somebody that I think everyone here can aspire to be as part of a commissioner and a commission and helping aviation aerospace moving forward. Followed that up on March 21st with a briefing, Cyber Resiliency and National Critical Infrastructure with Jeff Engel. I gotta give props to Jeff. This is not the most exciting topic in the world to talk about, cyber resiliency, cybersecurity, very important topic, but not an exciting one. He actually made it pretty interesting. So that was very good on him, and I think I was able to hold the crowd pretty well. Had our Advanced Mobility Council meeting on March 24th with my fellow Advanced Mobility Council members. Had several great presentations. Nicole Valentine from Consulting Group in Florida. We also had a couple of AAM strategic planning presenters from HNTB, the consultant we're working with on that strategic plan moving forward, and really trying to figure out how can the state become a leader in AAM moving forward. I know we've talked about that before a lot, but advanced air mobility is a big deal, both on the air and in the ground, and we want to be seen as a leader of that here in Oklahoma. And then last but not least, the bond rating. So we know that there's 3 bond agencies out there. They provide ratings to anybody that's issuing bond debt throughout the country. And they wanted to come to Oklahoma. Moreover, Treasurer Rush wanted to bring them to Oklahoma to show them how aviation aerospace is helping diversify Oklahoma's economy, that we are not just an oil and gas state. We're not just an agriculture state, that we are actually more of a manufacturing state than most people give us credit for. Just because we don't have end unit manufacturing on the aviation aerospace realm doesn't mean we don't do manufacturing as an industry here. And so we took them to AAR and Tinker Air Force Base and showed them. We also have 2 other bond companies coming this week that we're going to repeat that tour again. Going to add Boeing to the mix this week. And so looking forward to that, and just it's always fun to educate people from outside of Oklahoma the impact of what Oklahoma can do and who we are as a state. And I think walking away, those members of that bond rating company really were kind of awe-inspired as to, wow, I didn't know Oklahoma even had this here in the state. And that's usually the song and dance that we hear every time we bring someone in from out of state is, I just never knew. Again, best kept secret, something we're trying to peel back the onion on and trying to make sure people are educated and aware of what aviation aerospace means to the state. And we're trying to do it first with our in-state friends and the citizens here in Oklahoma, but then, of course, sharing that message beyond the state's borders and anybody here in the country that wants to come to the great state of Oklahoma and relocate their business or just see Oklahoma as a better place to be, live, do business, work, whatever it might be. Commissioners, Madam Chair, that concludes my director's report, but I'll stand for any questions or comments that you might have.
Who is the FAA Airports Director now in Southwest Region?
It's still Glenn Bowles.
Oh, okay.
Yep, still Glenn Bowles. He is still the head. He has a new assistant manager, Femi Aduwal. Butchered his last name. But there's only two other members of the ADO beyond Glenn, Femi, and those two individuals that are still been there since pre-COVID. Everybody else is a new face since COVID. And so I know Glenn's been going around the state. He's got plans to do it here in the future to send his members about to try and put faces with names and get them out to see some airports. Because that's usually what we did. We had the traveling roadshow pre-COVID where we would hop on the road for 5 days and we would go hit, 8, 9, 10 airports. FAA staff would come along. We'd do a meeting, 3 or 4 hours each airport, move on to the next one, talk about capital plan, talk about strategic planning, talk about what they needed to do to ensure a successful airport, how that can be used as an economic development tool. And we just haven't had that luxury since COVID. We've been doing it, but FAA hasn't been able to be a partner with us, and so we're missing a little bit of that opportunity. So hopefully they're going to come back out and be more interactive with us in the field moving forward.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, next item.
Thank you.
Sandra, do you want to take it from here?
Thank you, Commissioners. I've been tasked to give you the legislative update, so we're just going to go through this spreadsheet quickly, and we'll start with House Bill 2159. House Bill 2159 is amending the Laser Safety Act of 2015, and it increases fines for conviction of pointing a laser at an aircraft. And this spreadsheet says $1,000. They've amended that language to $500 and 1 year in prison. And they're changing it from a misdemeanor to a felony. And the criminal code has been used twice only since 2015. The title is stricken, so it's not a live round. They're still working on that, but I did want to bring that to your attention. That was brought by Representative Ford. And we'll scroll down just a little bit on your sheet here. These are just bills that we're tracking that deal with workforce. That you'll see some of those items there. Senator Pugh has a bill, Senate Bill 621, creating the Oklahoma Workforce Commission. So we watch several bills, but those are some that we're watching closely. Senate Bill 773 creates the definitions and fund for the Oklahoma Advanced Mobility Pilot Program with the Department of Transportation and the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, and we've been working on that. It is now in House Appropriations, and so we are still working on that, and that was authored by Senator Racino. Senate Bill 939 was authored by Senator Howard, and it's for the OSIDA board members, and so they are changing their board members, that the governor shall appoint 4 board members to a term of 3 years and 3 members for 4 terms of 4 years. Thereafter, each member shall serve a term of 4 years or until a successor is appointed and qualified. So they're just looking up at the makeup of the OSIDA board. And that bill, the title is on. It is on the House floor. So it has gone through all of the Senate introductions and committee work, and has also gone through the House committee. So now it is a live round, and if it passes off the House floor, it will go to the governor. Senate Bill 942 creates the Oklahoma Aircraft Engine Testing Development Grant Program to offer financial assistance by a grant to provide private or public entities the purpose of augmenting the aircraft engine testing capabilities. And Director Arties may speak more to that. But that's by Senator Haste. It is on the House floor, and the title is stricken. So they're still working on that bill. There's much work still to be done. Senate Bill 603 transfers the duties of the Oklahoma Tax Commission regarding aircraft registration and collections to Service Oklahoma. And Commissioner Ortega and Director Arties may want to visit with you more about that. But basically what they're doing, just like when you buy your car and you pay your tag, tile, and tax, they have shifted those duties from the Oklahoma Tax Commission to Service Oklahoma, and that will be the same for aircraft registration and paying your aircraft excise tax as well. So I hope I said that right. I did, great. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. We have worked with the Tax Commission, and we have worked with Service Oklahoma to make sure that our pilots, when they purchase their planes, are taken care of, and we are looking forward to a strong relationship with Service Oklahoma. Senate Bill 782 modifies the name of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission to the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics. The title is on. That is a live round, and when it passes the House floor, it will go to the governor, and I expect that to happen within the coming weeks. Senate Bill 930 creates the Aerospace Program for Aerospace and Aviation Education within the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. That's authored by Senator Racino. The title is also on that bill, so when it passes off the House floor, it will go to the governor for consideration. And that's my report to you today, and I'm happy to yield for questions.
Explain to me the purpose of 1758. Top item.
1758 is a bill that Representative Manger brought to the legislature this year, and Doug and I have visited with him about this bill, and I'll let Doug cover that in his report if that's okay.
Okay.
Great. Anything else, commissioners?
All right, hearing none.
Thank you.
You want to add anything?
I'll yield my time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, financial report. Chris Wadsworth.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Starting out with the financial summary document, as of the end of March, the Commission had an ending cash balance of $13.9 million. Encumbrances totaled $5.9 million. Outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency are about $757,000. And the amount of remaining expenditures in the airport construction program that could be incurred during this fiscal year totals $9.2 million. That leaves us with an expected available cash balance of $1.47 million. You might recall at the meeting last month that expected available cash balance was 6.4. We talked about how high that was after we've added in the grants that you all approved last month to add to the ACP. It's now down much more in line with where we're typically at for that expected available balance. Moving on to the revenue document. In your packets that you received on Friday, the revenue for March was shown as $693,000. The Tax Commission did post the remaining revenue later Friday, so the total revenue collected for March was $768,000. That brings our total year-to-date collected through March to $7.6 million, which compares to $4.2 million for the same time frame last year. So we're still holding steady, being up about 70% over last year through the end of March. And then finally, on the 3-year average of our statutory revenue collected, we're up about $3.8 million more than what our 3-year average is. So through 3/4 of the year, we are still having a great year revenue-wise, and hopefully we'll continue it to the last quarter. Happy to answer any questions.
Good news. Any questions? Thank you. Next up, Progressing Rural Economic Prosperity, PrEP Fund.
Thank you, Commissioners. PrEP Fund update. Over the last probably month and a half since our March meeting, we've had visits with all of the major mega project, so Tulsa International Tower, Will Rogers World Airport MRO hangar, the Woodward Industrial Air Park infrastructure, and the Ardmore Air Cargo infrastructure. Had visits with each one of them to get an update and a plan as to what you all had approved at the March meeting, where they were moving forward, what's their next steps, and kind of trying to lay out the rest of the year game plan. I had the opportunity to provide our first quarterly report to the legislature just on Friday. Although we weren't required to provide a quarterly report, several other agencies that receive PrEP funds or ARPA funds were, and I figured out of the best interest of transparency and keeping our legislature and states leaders up to date, I would do a quarterly report of some kind to ensure everybody knew what was going on. I'll, of course, forward that to you all here today. And essentially, just keeping everybody up to date every quarter, what's going on, how are we spending this money, how are we investing this in the ground, which is what the legislature wanted to do. We also, in the time since our last commission meeting, visited with Craig Smith and our friends at the OSIDA agency, and how can they best implement their funds. As you all know, we are acting as agent for that airport for their implementations of funding, and this was before PrEP even came about. This was just to help them with their FAA monies, their DoD Joint Use Agreement monies, and any other funding that they may receive. And so we've been helping Craig and his consulting engineer get a game plan together for how are they going to use their transformational funds. So our 4 mega projects, the other mega aviation project being Burns Flat, OSIDA, Clinton Sherman, all moving forward. And I think this summer we'll have to break out some shovels and some helmets for some groundbreaking ceremonies. And so I suspect that we're going to try and get those monies in the dirt and turning as quickly as possible. We will always probably have a agenda item for prep update for every commission meeting now, probably for the next 2 to 3 years. So I'll just keep you apprised as best we can. And of course, in between meetings, if something is noteworthy or newsworthy, I'll send to you via email. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions, but thank you for the opportunity to provide an update.
Any questions? Okay. Next, I recognize Ben McGavie, Airport Construction Grant Program. This is a consent docket.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. We have a project at Chickasha Municipal Airport that involves rehabilitating the taxiway and runway pavement. The total project cost, based on the bids received, is $620,500. The project will be funded using about $590,000 of the state grant funds and over $31,000 of sponsor matching funds. Next project is at McAllister Airport, which involves the construction of a new terminal building with a total project cost of approximately $2.77 million based on the bids. The project will be funded through the combination of over $919,000 in federal grant funds, almost $874,000 in state grant funds, and nearly $976,000 in a sponsor matching fund. We have Mr. Chase Tyndall and Kirk Evans.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me. I'm here with McAllister Regional Airport. As you can see here, we have plans for our new terminal. This terminal is long overdue at our airport. Our current terminal was built in the early 1950s. We have done our best to keep that building maintained, but we have outgrown it. So this new terminal will help support us in better servicing our pilots and passengers, as well as our increase in flight training at our airport, our aero education and partnerships with our local high school, as well as our growing industry in the area. So your support on this project would be much appreciated. The city is ready to move forward. We have secured funds, and we are very excited about this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm standing for any question you may have, but the staff recommends approval.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
First and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I recognize Paula Keaty for Aerospace Aviation Education Program update.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. You've heard me speak many times about the 625 FAA 625 Pilot Workforce Development Grant. As we're nearing the end of implementing that grant, which is hard to believe, we will be finishing that this spring, and we've had many large events and actually materials printed and all kinds of things that have helped us move our aviation education program forward. Were the FAA in the room today, I would thank them, because I think down the line what we're going to see is those funds have really propelled us into some good work that we're going to benefit from for many years. You also have heard me speak about the 5 Oklahoma Aviation High Schools of Excellence. And because of that grant, each of those high schools has been able to hold 2 aviation STEM events for their regions. The picture you're seeing there was a prior event that Michelle and I attended in March, and I believe over 200 students from 10 area AOPA schools up in northeastern Oklahoma were there. So it was a very wonderful day. They had interactive activities. They heard pilots speak. They had post-secondary booths that they could visit to hear about where they go after that pathway. So that was good. On March 20th, I had the opportunity to accompany Gigi Coleman, who is Bessie Coleman's great niece, to OAA in Norman, the Norman Public Schools Aviation Academy. And Gigi enters the room as Bessie, and she speaks as Bessie, and she tells her life story. And I was a little hesitant. I thought, okay, let's see how these kids react to this. And they were enthralled. It was really, really good. And they asked intelligent questions, and you could tell it was not just your normal field trip or guest speaker or whatever. They were interested because they're interested in aviation. So it was really exciting. We had a great day, and then Sandra and various other volunteers accompanied her across the state as she visited about Bessie Coleman's important history, showed them the new Bessie Coleman Barbie doll and quarter that the U.S. Mint has produced, and so it was a really, really good day. On March 28th and 29th, I visited Woodland Public Schools, Woodland High School up by Fairfax, up by Enid, and then Tuttle the next day. Both of those schools will be implementing AOPA curriculum next year. And so as we're finishing this up for this year, I can't give you a final number, but I believe it will be between 75 and 80 schools that will be teaching the AOPA curriculum next year. Very gratifying, and I think I've got another visit this week and another one next week, and then we'll move toward closing it out for next August as they begin to implement. And then what's taken our biggest focus for the past month is the preparation for the very first Oklahoma High School Student Pilot Day that we held this past Thursday in Tulsa. What a remarkable day. I believe, Sandra, you wanted to show the news?
Yes, if they'll play the video.
Clip. We had lots of press coverage.
Gathered for a Student Pilot Day event, and 2 News anchor Justin Fisher reports.
We're here at Tulsa International Airport at Hangar 80 for American Airlines, where more than 400 Oklahoma aviation students are learning all the different career opportunities there are in aviation. The airport, along with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, or OAC, American Airlines, Oklahoma National Guard, and Tulsa Air and Space Museum all gathered to host the inaugural Oklahoma Student Pilot Day.
There are so many needs as far as employment in Oklahoma and in the United States for pilots, for maintenance workers, for air traffic controllers in every aspect of aviation and aerospace.
The commission received an FAA 625 Workforce Development Grant for the program.
We need to be worrying about the industry for the future, and that's exactly what we're doing, building a workforce by working with high schools across Oklahoma.
According to the OAC, Oklahoma is #1 for the number of schools teaching the You Can Fly curriculum. Mason Skimbo and Ryan Dodson are both sophomores from McAllister High School. They're looking into the possibility of aviation as their careers.
It's just a really cool field of work. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of stuff to it. Just about anything you can think of, there's something like a job for it. It's pretty cool.
I came here to get a little more insight. I'm not completely sure on what I want to do in the future, whether it's more mechanic side or go into the military of it. So this will give me a good look.
Students had the chance to meet with professionals in the aviation field, including the Air National Guard. Brigadier General Trey Siegfried was there to speak with the future aviators.
The other possibilities are endless when it comes to aviation. Yes, the amount of pilot hiring in the airlines or in the military, domestic, international, it's the forecasts are well over 100,000 pilots in the foreseeable future. Saying that, the aircraft are in the sky. We also need maintainers, people to service the aircraft. Really critical for Oklahoma to keep our aerospace footprint going. And this is one of the ways we're doing it.
In Tulsa, Justin Fisher, 2 News Oklahoma.
I got to get up in front of the students to introduce the guest speakers. And when I did, it just was an overwhelming experience for me, because if you look back where we began just a few years ago and trying to get these kids in this pathway, I told them when I got up there that morning, I said, if a stranger wandered in here, they would say, oh, it's a bunch of high school kids on a field trip to Tulsa International. But that's not what I saw. What I saw was the future of Oklahoma's aviation industry looking straight back at me. And it was very, very rewarding. I think Michelle said it best. She said, I've never seen so many smiles on kids' faces. And that's because it was not just a field trip that meant nothing to them. They were asking questions, and they were involved. This was a huge undertaking. You see what I call Tonka trucks in that picture. That's airline equipment. Alexis Higgins and Tulsa International brought in their new snow blowers, brought in their new equipment so that students would have an idea of what it took to run an airport. We thank Chase Beasley and American Airlines. He stayed there all day. Eastern Oklahoma Girl Scouts presented the colors. A huge, huge, huge thank you to the Oklahoma Air National Guard and Senior Staff Sergeant Andrew Lamoureux, who helped us on Wednesday set up the whole event, brought in his 137, 138, and helped us really get ready for the day. And also the Arkansas Air National Guard 188th Wing helped as well. As I said, we thank Alexis Higgins. We thank Tanya Blansett with the Tulsa Air and Space Museum, the AFA Garrity chapter, Critical Components, and then our two guest speakers, Captain John Irish Kilty and Brigadier General Raymond Siegfried, who spoke to the kids. And this picture you see is a student panel of a student from each of the 5 aviation high schools talking about the certifications they've earned. That's awesome. One of them will say, I passed my private pilot. One would say, I got my Part 107. And so for them to tell those other students in the audience, that they had a dream and they had a pathway and a plan was excellent. So it's been a good month for aviation education, and obviously I'll be delighted to stand for any questions.
I'm just amazed how far we've come. I mean, you've been the leader,
Well,
hands
thank you.
down, but I remember when we just had 2 or 3 schools, and we're hoping we could get the money, and
Right.
it all paid off.
Well, it's definitely been a team effort, and I should thank also Thomas and Jace, who were excellent Uber drivers at the event for the bus drivers and teachers, because they had to park at Tulsa Air and Space and get to Hangar 80. So it was a team event, and it was a really, really good day.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Doug Wood, and Sandra, are you going to come up too for this? All right. I recognize Doug.
Commissioners, thank you. One quick update to something the director presented earlier at the Rose State Career Fair. I went last year, and I attended this year. Last year, I think they had around 150 people arrive and go through those things. This year, they had over 800 people come through, and there was actually a separate line for those people applying for Tinker Air Force Base. So probably half of those people came for Tinker. So it was a huge event this year, and they were lined up a couple of hours before the doors even opened to get into the career fair. So
That's great.
Commissioner, on your question for Senate Bill 1758, originally that was a bill that prevented the use of UAS to actually do assessments for appraisals for property values. Director Arties and Sandra met with Representative Manger and talked with him about that, and the Aeronautics Commission is obviously looking to promote the use of UAS and AAM.
Right.
And so we supported a technology agnostic bill, which has since been amended to now using commercially available overlays and existing commercial products to do those, plus physical inspections. So I don't know what the status of the bill is.
What was the rationale? First off, we want certified, licensed up, FAA approved. I mean, we're spending a lot of resources on UAF and drone pilots and everything else. Why in the world would we want to undermine an entire career industry, really?
I believe there's probably several reasons. I'm not going to speak to the specific issues that there may be in the legislature as far as what, but there's some publicly available information regarding property tax assessments and some folks in the legislature that have different feelings on how those are conducted. Part of it, I believe, is some lingering privacy issues, people being concerned about drones flying over their properties and collecting data or collecting photographs of their properties.
It's the same data that's going to be collected in other ways.
And that's the point that we made.
So why would we not want our agencies to be able to do it in the most cost-effective manner possible?
And we promote that, sir. That's what Director Arties and Sandra went up and spoke with Representative Manger about. We also spoke with him again during Aero Day, I took a legislative team around to several legislators, and we made a point, knowing that he had put this bill forward, to bring other entities, people from Airwise Technologies in Tulsa, people from Oklahoma State University, to speak with him and give him some more information on that.
But his sole concern is privacy issues?
I don't believe that's his sole concern. I believe it's using technology for, to collect that information specifically for tax assessments.
All right.
If I can help just a little bit.
I don't agree with it. I think he should be allowed to complain if he wants to drive his horse and buggy to the state capitol complex.
Representative Manger is the chairman of Public Safety over in the House, and we've had some great conversations with him on Aero Day. And a group of ambassadors went over and visited with him, and he is open to this, so we're working with him closely on that.
Yeah, I would try and convince him that he's killing an industry.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunter. We will convey that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and moving on to the Heli Expo. So Sandra and I attended the Heli Expo, which is the Helicopter Association International conference that took place in Atlanta. And we were part of the Oklahoma State effort. So we went with the Department of Commerce ACES program. And we were one of 2 states represented, the other being North Dakota. And they simply had a booth that was representing their university there. So we had a number of contacts, both Sandra and I, as well as the team from ACES. Sandra, do you want to talk about International Women's Day? No? Okay. Well, there was a special event celebrating International Women's Day, and Sandra made a number of contacts with the folks from there. And as part of that, and the team from the Whirly Girls, Sandra, I think, has pretty much single-handedly recruited a female-owned, Marine veteran-led helicopter company to Oklahoma. They're still in preliminary talks, but they're looking at moving their operations here, and they're looking at partnering possibly with either OSU or OU on starting a helicopter school for people to get their commercial pilot's license for a helicopter. So there were several unique, I think they had 42 helicopters that they managed to bring in and put inside this monstrous exhibition hall. They had, I think, 3 Chinooks that I saw in there, a number of Blackhawks. I thought this was kind of interesting with the motorcycles on the side. The one on the right is Airbus's entry into the advanced air mobility. It's a 4-person, unpiloted, piloted by AI and remotely air taxi. I believe it has about a 50-mile range, and there are a number of those. This is 2 large, well, one larger than the other, common cargo package delivery. This is primarily for military use or use in like in Africa or places like that where they have large package deliveries to remote areas. This is actually jet turbine driven, has an 800-pound cargo capacity and a 500-mile range. And so they can sling that either in that pod that's below that, or they can use a slung load cargo capacity. But it's an interesting. I attended a number of presentations. I would probably estimate about 40% of this year's Heli Expo is dedicated to UAS and AAM and the future of beyond visual line of sight, how we're going to do infrastructure. These are a number of well-known folks that presented. I think the environmental challenges and the design considerations was actually on vertiports. And then we had an opportunity, Sandra and I, to speak directly with members from HAI. Greg Brown on the left is the Director of Education and Training Services, and we talked with him about AOPA and our program and the program that they promote, which is the helicopter, I apologize, but they have an education program for students as well that's helicopter-centric. And so we spoke with them about that, and they're interested in both our AOPO program that we're doing here and possibly bringing their program for helicopters to Oklahoma. We spoke with John Shea, who's the Director of Government Affairs, and we've had continuing conversations after our dinner that evening. Matter of fact, I think we have another one this afternoon, a Zoom call, to continue this conversation. I think some of the rumors that I heard going around is that there may be a rebranding of HAI in the future to include vertical lift and AAM. I think they've, as an entity, have decided to embrace UAS and AAM as part of vertical lift, including helicopters, as opposed to having them as a separate entity that they may have to have parallel interests with but compete with. So it's bringing them into the fold. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Overall, I think it was a really good conference, my first involving that. But there were a lot of UAS AAM related things that were going on there, and Oklahoma was well represented. And I believe that's my report. I'll stand for questions.
I don't think so. Are you all going to do the next one together? Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you.
Aero Oklahoma Aviation, Aerospace, and Defense Awareness Day at the Capitol. A great day.
Commissioners, you should be very proud of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission team. We pulled off a miracle at the state capitol, and I cannot tell you, Chris's leadership and organization and the entire team behind me are really to be thanked and to be honored for helping just pull this together. We had 1,000 attendees. We had 750 people sign up through Eventbrite. We had 150 students and 150 airmen attend that day. So that's how we come to that number. And there may have been more there as well, I'm not sure. We had 64 exhibitors, and the Speaker of the House, Charles McCall, was very gracious to lend us the Supreme Court. So we were able to, for the first time ever, have exhibitors down that hallway as well. So we are expanding our footprint in the Capitol on this day, and but we're trying to be respectful that they're still conducting business. And so we limited our space to the second floor. And this year, Governor Kevin Stitt, Speaker McCall, President Pro Tem Treat, and the three-star general from Tinker Air Force Base, Stacy Hawkins, all spoke from the stage. And I have just a few photos for you here. The companies that we had this year were really top-tier companies. We had BizJet, Spirit Aerosystems, Lufthansa, and American Airlines, and just a whole slew of those. And I can give you that printed list if you'd like. We had a lot of education there. We had many colleges there and resources. This is G.G. Coleman. G.G. Coleman was sponsored by Spirit Aerosystems to come and speak at the Capitol that day. And because we had already funded Gigi to come, Gigi started her day on Sunday with me. She stayed with me all week. And so we put her to work on an entire week. She toured the state of Oklahoma, talking about Bessie Coleman and the importance of Bessie Coleman and her connection to Oklahoma. If you don't know, Bessie Coleman was the first African-American woman to get her pilot's license, and she got her pilot's license in France because they would not teach her to fly in the United States. And so she learned French to learn to fly. She has an amazing story, and so Gigi Coleman, Bessie's great niece, is keeping that story alive. And so she also spoke to Boeing on Monday. Then she traveled to Tulsa, where she had an entire day where she spoke to East Central students, and then spoke at Spirit Aerosystems. She also then went to Tulsa Tech, and she finished her day at the Tulsa Air and Space Museum, speaking to students there. On Wednesday, of course, she spent the day with us at Aero Oklahoma, and she was recognized by the Oklahoma House of Representatives, and I'll come to that in just a moment. And on Thursday, she met with Mayor Holt, and they're installing a Bessie Coleman garden at the airport. And so we're working with Director Mulder with Will Rogers World Airport to help connect them to Gigi Coleman and the Bessie Coleman family. You see there's Michelle Coppage, the director of the FAA. The FAA brought a simulator this year to Aero Day at the Capitol, and everyone went crazy for it. I don't know how they got it in the elevator. It is a very large simulator, so we're so proud of that. You see James Grimsley there too, also in the crowd. And a crowd it was. There was a moment there that I thought, we're going to be in trouble for having this many people here. But it was a great day, and I am looking for, there it is. Okay, Senator Racino. So speaking about the students that came that day, this is Mustang Aviation, and Senator Racino was there. And Senator Racino and Senator Haste, Representative Nicole Miller, and Senator Brenda Stanley also assisted us that day in the program. This is the hall, that's the Supreme Court hallway, and you can see we put the drones operators in the back to draw students and attendees towards the back of that hallway. And the drone corridor was very well received this year. This was the first time we've had that, and we look to expand that next year. So this is where the Oklahoma House of Representatives recognized the legacy of Bessie Coleman, and this is the press release that the House of Representatives House of Representatives issued. I do have to tell you that Representative Nicole Miller really assisted the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission in getting her to the House floor. Was a deadline week, and it's usually blocked out, and Commissioner Ortega can tell you about that. Getting a person recognized on the floor is very difficult, and so we owe Representative Miller a debt of gratitude for helping us honor Bessie Coleman and her legacy. We're right at about the 100-year mark of the height of her flying career, so you're going to be hearing a lot more about Bessie Coleman in the coming months. And I think that is the end of mine, and I would yield for questions, and so happy to have had such a great day, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Comments I have, I think you had the opportunity to meet, I had guests from DC.
Deloitte, yeah.
And I think we might take it for granted what we have. And first of all, the capitals never looked better. And to a lot of people coming in, I think we just think about that's our capital, but to show it off, they were wowed. They were wowed with the entire state. But the idea was to get them more familiar with FAA and other opportunities in the state. They have a state presence. This is Deloitte. They were blown away, and everyone that I had wanted to introduce them to while they were here was there. Mm-hmm. And so they were just wowed that there's such a tight-knit fraternity of aviation in this state, and it says a lot. And so when you're doing all the work that you did, don't ever forget, I mean, this has huge impact on people coming in and appreciating our state.
You know, and I would tell you, Commissioner, I agree with you, and I would say that there's a lot of different individuals and organizations that have a Capitol Day. Our exhibitors and our attendees were so respectful of the art in the Capitol. There was art all down the Supreme Court hallway. Of course, I did threaten them, but they were so respectful.
There was Scotch tape.
Yes, right. They were so respectful, and I just think we have an incredible industry, and the senators and representatives, the feedback from the people that made visits was very good, and I love our industry. I love the people that help make Aero Oklahoma amazing, and so April 3rd, 2024, we'll see you there.
Great.
Thank you.
And just a note, and I mentioned this to Gigi when we were in Tulsa, but in FAA, there's a Bessie Coleman room, and I spent more hours than I care to admit in the Bessie Coleman room on the second floor of the FAA building. So we think about her all the time.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Item 13.
Item 13, I'm going to step in for Nick today. He wasn't feeling very well. I know we've got some things to be thinking about, so please keep him in your prayers. The Oklahoma Airport Operators Conference, we were at Monkey Island March 26th through 29th. Women in aviation seems to be the theme of the year, so you can see all the female aviators, airport managers, consultants there in attendance. Great opportunity to discuss with our friends and family of aviation aerospace and the airports industry as to what are some of the challenges. And I don't know who did it, but someone signed me up to speak 5 different times that trip, so I'm just now, my vocal cords are just now getting recovered from that. I'll find that person. But I had the privilege and the pleasure and the luxury as a leader. It's always fun to surprise people. And so one of our staff who happened to be in attendance got an award, and that person happened to be Miss Michelle Poseidon. And the most fun aspect of giving out an award is making sure the secret's kept right up until the end. And so we did that. We were very successful with that with Paula Keaty last year, and now I can say I'm 2 for 2 with Michelle because I think she was on her phone while the award speech was being written, because I was sitting there behind her watching her, and you know, they're going through the speech and they were describing the person as to who was getting the award, and all of a sudden I saw her stop typing, and she kind of looked to the side. It's like, did I hear what they were saying right? And she went back and are they talking about me? And sure enough, because by the time you start listing off all the accolades and the descriptions of that person, there's only one person that fits that description. And sure enough, by that point in time, they named Michelle as the award winner. So she got the OAOA 2023 Appreciation Award for all of her good hard work. Of for the agency, for aviation and aerospace, for educations, for airports. And I just want to say thank you, Michelle, for the work that you do. And obviously, thank you to OAOA for recognizing one of our staff and the important work that they do in the airports industry. So I don't know how we're going to go 3 for 3, but we'll work on that plan and figure it out. But congratulations to Michelle. And again, lots of accolades, lots of thank yous to the OAC team for a great Aero Day at the Capitol that we had just come off of, and great Women in Aviation Day from last fall. And it really does show you that the agency is making a splash, not simply for the agency's sake, but for the sake of moving the industry forward and trying to make sure that we have the attention, as is well-deserved, where it needs to be on aviation aerospace. So great opportunity there at the Airport Operators Conference, and I would encourage any of you that have interest to come out and see some of that, maybe the first day were some of the main presentations. We did have one of a really good keynote speaker in one of the early founders of the flight school that happens to be in one of our favorite movies, Top Gun. And so the Top Gun school, we heard from I think it was Rear Admiral there that was one of the early creators of the Top Gun school. And so he is actually now in Oklahoma, living up in northeast Oklahoma City. And so I suspect we will hear him at more events coming throughout the future. I think Sandra got his business card and is going to be plugging him into aviation aerospace. But it really was a good story of how Top Gun was started right after, Vietnam and our ACEs. Our kill ratios weren't very good. Killed aircraft loss ratio wasn't very good. And he spoke up about how teams are created and how that's how Top Gun moved forward, was creating a team. And I couldn't say that I heard some lingering items of how the OAC team functions and how well we are as an organization. So great opportunity, but that's it. I'll stand for any questions.
Congratulations. Any questions? All right. Are you going to stay up?
Stay up for item number 14. Yes, item 14. Approval to sponsor the 2023 Aerospace Forum, $3,000 sponsorship to partner with the ACES program and some of the other aviation aerospace industries at the Oklahoma City Convention Center this year, November 8th, 2023. They started off as about a half-day event. We're now almost to a full-day event. I would encourage any of you that have interest to join us. They're going to have some good speaker lineups. Yours truly will be speaking at some point in time, as well as several leaders of the state, Governor Stitt, Lieutenant Governor Pinnell, Congressman Hearn, Senator Langford. We haven't settled on the invitees yet for the agenda, but should be a good day. And staff recommends approval for this sponsorship, and I will stand for any questions.
Questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
And Sandra's going to talk about upcoming aviation and aerospace events.
Well, Commissioners, return your tray tables back to their folded and upright position. We are landing. The Aero Education Summit for AOPA Teacher Professional Development will be June 5th through the 8th at Norman, and a banquet has been tentatively set for Tuesday, June 6th. Please put that on your calendars for those who might want to attend. The Tinker Air Show is set for July 1st and 2nd, 2023. The Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission has a premier role in the Tinker Air Show, and I am serving on the STEM City Committee and have a committee meeting this afternoon. Of course, Grayson highlighted the Oklahoma Aerospace Forum for November 8th. MRO Americas will be April 18th through the 20th. AUVSI Exponential is May 8th through 11th. And the Paris Air Show, Commissioner Hunter, is June 19th through 25th, in case you wanted to take me. And the AAAE Conference and Expo is June 3rd through the 5th in Denver. A little closer to home, Thursday, April 13th, the EAA Chapter 24 monthly meeting is at Sundance Airport. And Commissioner Putnam, I'm not sure if he'll be back from his trip, but they will be meeting there. And then on Saturday, April 22nd, is the fly-in, drive-in pancake breakfast for Young Eagles at Sundance for EAA Chapter 24. And the Tulsa Air and Space Museum Aviator Ball is Saturday, April 22nd, and myself and Andrea and Michelle plan to attend. If you would like to attend, please email me, and we will be happy to see about getting you some tickets to the Aviator Ball. It's an amazing thing that they do up there, and it's a fundraiser for their entire educational programs throughout the year. And the Oklahoma Pilots Association, don't forget, the first Thursday monthly, they have their dinner. And I'd be happy to yield for any questions. I'm sure there'll be lots of other events coming out. I know Sparrow has something coming up, so I plan to attend that as well.
Great. Thank you for keeping us updated.
Thank you.
Concluding remarks. Any comments, remarks? Things are good? All right. Our next meeting is another special meeting on May 10th, 10 o'clock, same place. Any questions, comments?
I think it's a regular
Okay, okay. I thought, how many special meetings can we have? I was
It'll
gonna
be
say.
very special.
I'm looking at this, I thought, well, today's special, I guess next time will be too. Everybody needs to be here and it'll be special. Okay, any concluding comments?
No, ma'am. No
Okay.
concluding remarks.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.